the monument to Joe Louis. Okay, the next slide, slide number 9, stuff about location and meaning making. One of the things, again, and this is tied to some of the stuff that we just talked about, all of this, the meaning of this thing, it's not only meaningful emotionally, but the meaning has lots of meanings. It means Joe Louis and the story of Joe Louis and the heroic nature, the national hero Joe Louis, and bringing race together. But also it's about the history of Detroit and all the various things that have gone on in Detroit, the economic problems and all sorts of different things. And one of the things that they talk about, which I thought was really, really interesting, they call this black social memory. It's in part how that memory, and this is not just for the African American community, but perhaps it resonates a great deal with the African American community. The memory is spatial material because in part how African Americans have been displaced. They talk about how the interstate system was, really screwed up black neighborhoods. We have the white flight, and they had the root shock that the book talks about. That the spatial and changes that have occurred have just destroyed neighborhoods and communities, and that's on page 98. And the middle paragraph on page 99, I think, when it comes to that type of thinking, that type of interpretation, is amazingly important. It starts, I'll read just a little bit of it, but I'll let you, again, read it. In the monument to Joe Louis, then, the past and present are brought together in a visualization of the relationship between power and force as they have played out in Detroit. And so take a look at all that type of stuff because it's really, really interesting. The last paragraph, or last sentence in that paragraph says, the monument references the positioning of African Americans as other. It also symbolizes the fight to move beyond imposed limits that have become concretized, that is made concrete, in the form of urban planning that constrained the movement of African Americans both within and outside the city limits, and that aided and encouraged the movement of whites to suburban areas. So again, that's all part of the meaning of this fist. Another part of the monument, for a while I already sort of said that. It's about shiny cars, but also racial strife. And then, of course, the last paragraph of that section, which is the last paragraph of every section in every book, is usually pretty good. 102 to 103 sort of sums up this aspect of the chapter. Within a cultural context marked by race, therefore, the physical location and particularly the issue related to access and planning of place and space are important factors in the signification. I can't say that, of a commemorative site. So, and all that means is it's all part of what it means. That's all it says. Due to the complexity and divisiveness of race relations in the United States in general, and Detroit in particular, characteristics that translate into how space is allocated, who lives where, and the good and the bad parts of cities, artifacts that memorialize individuals and events that are erased are essentially complicated, unfinished text that, as we have demonstrated here, draw from outside the structures of the memorials themselves to form the character of the structure. And so, again, part of the meaning, that fist, that monument, also means all the various urban planning and everything like that that oppressed African Americans. The next slide here, inviting judgment about the monument. They are they're basically saying that unlike other stuff, oftentimes that's in an urban environment, like a big old building, this monument at least is a vehicle for public discussion and debate. particularly about race issues. So it invites social dissonance. It invites us to argue about issues of race. And one of the things when it comes to the reaction, it's not like everybody thinks it's awesome. The reactions are all over the place. Yeah, this is awesome, this is cool, but also frustration, resistance, fear, outrage. And so there are multiple ways that people have judged this. And some see it as conciliatory to African Americans in part, trying to say we're sorry, I suppose. And Joe Louis was awesome. But also they focus on how it has polarized folks, and it has sort of polarized views depending on, I guess, maybe your race or where you live or something like that. So some people can really see it as this symbol of hope and progress, while others see it completely and utterly differently. And so the next thing, there are more judgments here, and I do say, this is slide 11, that the monument, again, was dedicated in 86. But what's interesting here, the way they talk about the reactions or the judgments, they talk about counter movements or counter memorials or counter monuments that were, I guess, in discussion, a reaction to the fist. And so we had, actually, it was in 84, I guess it had to be part of the process or reaction to plans or ideas for the fist. There's actually a real sort of lifelike image or statue of Joe Louis, so you know it's actually Joe Louis. So basically what they say are counter movements or counter memorials can serve three functions, generally speaking, and they also reference the Vietnam War Memorial in D.C. They can be corrective, that is, correct problems with some sort of initial monument, as a supplement, sort of adding to it, or contradict it in some sort of way, say something different than what the other one says. That's not necessarily a corrective. So our authors say that the one in Cobo Hall, I guess, is a corrective because it is the whole body, so it does not dismember Joe Louis, but it's also a supplement, so folks remember Joe Louis perhaps in a different way. And then they also say that they have the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, and it is the third way that the city of Detroit, the physical landscape of the city of Detroit, sort of memorializes Joe Louis. We got the fist, we've got the lifelike thing, Cobo Hall, and then we have the Joe Louis Arena. And the middle of page 106 is very important. This is what they say. The fist, therefore, has therefore brought about, in the case of the Hamilton statue, I think that's the Cobo thing, and become part of, in the case of the arena, a more extensive field of memory and commemoration, reflecting and engaging the complexities of Detroit's history and of racial histories throughout the country. And so they sort of broaden it, where the actual monument itself that they began studying, it's really a study of all these things. Some pretty interesting stuff. So the end. The conclusion, as I say here, is a little bit wishy-washy, but the whole monument is hegemonic, but also counter-hegemonic. It valorizes Joe Louis and African Americans, but it can also be seen as racist. It celebrates civil rights, but also frighten folks and perhaps can constrain civil rights. So lots of interesting things going on here, but how can we use it in our own tour? What can we get out of this as we go and tour the State House grounds? Slide 13 has a couple of websites that you can visit to explore the State House grounds. 14 has more specific information about the African American Monument, which I think is something that's really important to study. But I think what makes the State House grounds particularly interesting, at least from my point of view, is the juxtaposition of the different monuments and what they all say and say differently. So probes for your own visit, and this is me just sort of again teasing out stuff from the chapter. What values does the State House grounds or the specific statues, it should be, and memorials or monuments provide? Is there anything about the aesthetic forms of certain things that might offer or help certain values along? Note that I talked already about the way that the African American memorial or monument goes. It's a story of progress, visually, physically. Are there metonymies? Is there something about a certain statue or monument that stands for larger things, whether it be a person, a social issue, a political issue, whatever? Does anything invoke in you or to others intense emotions? What are those emotions? How do certain memorials or monuments or statues work to evoke those emotions? I think I just said that. What are the consequences of those emotions? What are the implications? And tying it back to implications for political civic issues. More probes. Is there something about the physical landscape or location that helps along meaning making? Or what are the possible meanings of this or that monument or the state grounds as whole? What does it say that the State House grounds, and thus the State House, is in downtown Columbia, in South Carolina, really close to USC? Go Gamecocks. Go Koalas. Grr, I'm sleepy. That is one of the things to think about that we can draw from this chapter. Was anything ever uprooted to make way for the State House, for the State House grounds, for USC? I think so. And then what judgments do certain things invite and how? High praise, fear, conciliation, polarization. Do you know of any counter memorials someplace, perhaps that's not on the State House grounds, that are commenting on stuff at State House grounds? And then any final thoughts? So those are the things that I want you to think about when you are doing your virtual tours, or if you're going to do it physically. And then, so far as the tweets, one little tweet. That's it, 140 characters about some sort of reaction that you might have from your visit. The travel blog should be a little bit more extensive. And remember, one of the things I said in the syllabus is that your travel blog needs to be like a mini critical essay. It shouldn't just say, oh, I went to the State House, and it was rainy, and I saw a tree and a squirrel, and a statue of Strom Thurmond. He was walking slowly. It needs to be descriptive for sure, but also theoretically and critically savvy. And that's why I have those probes there. And so if you try to answer some of those probes in that travel blog, that's what I am looking for. So happy traveling. This is the first tour again, so I hope you enjoy your tour of the State House grounds. But more than anything else, and what this entire class is about, we are doing this tour not just for kicks and giggles, but because we are interested in the rhetoric of memory places. What values is all this stuff offering? What are the various meanings? How does it evoke certain emotions? What does it say about public memory? Because this stuff is important, and it ties back to the landscape of our social and political realities. So enjoy your visit. Take care. And certainly email me and do all that type of stuff, as I said. But you won't get another recorded lecture from me until next Monday. And I wish I could give you a tissue through this video. Take care. Have a great weekend.